are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, August 15th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys that we did qualify for Super Chats. So to make the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, you could hit the little $sign in the chat menu, and that will highlight your comment during the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it during the broadcast, and it just makes the show better. We appreciate you guys tuning in and day out, and that's just one way to help out the show. Along with that, you could still use the link, which is gsmcpodcast.net, which is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment. But Super Chat is easier because you don't leave the video. You could help out the show while you're still watching it, as opposed to clicking on the link and going to a separate site. So just wanted to remind you guys about that. Now let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we are going to start off the show. We're going to talk about J.J.McCarthy. So he's officially going to be out for the entire season with the torn meniscus. He did undergo surgery on that injury, and he will be out for the entire season, which is a devastating blow because, you know, whether you thought he was going to be good or not this season, you know, we wanted to see him play. So we're going to talk about that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about a Blockbuster trade. So the Patriots, they've been dealing with, you know, contract dispute with Matthew Judon, arguably their best defensive player, and they ended up trading him to the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about episode 2 of Hard Knocks with the Bears. I'll talk about Caleb Williams' preseason debut. Then in the fourth part of the show, we will talk about the AFC East. Will rank the wide receiver groups within that division. And then in the final part of the show, I'll get into talking about the preseason game tonight between the Eagles and the Patriots. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about J.J. McCarthy's injury. So I know I discussed it yesterday, so he was dealing with knee soreness, and it was determined that he did have a torn meniscus. Now, we didn't exactly know what when I did the show yesterday, we didn't exactly know what the timeline of, you know, the recovery was going to be, whether he was going to, you know, get the trimming or get the full surgery. And it turns out that he is indeed going to be out for the entire season. He got the full surgery. He had it yesterday, and yeah, he is going to be out. So with that being said now, Sam Darnold is going to be the starter moving forward. And the other quarterbacks that they have on the team, you have Sam Darnold, you have Nick Mullins, who started some games last year for the Vikings, and you also have Jaren Hall, who made some starts last year as well. And there was that one game against against the Packers where he did start, and it was kind of curious how the Vikings handled it, because he started the game and then the Vikings fell behind and they ended up switching over to Nick Mullins when the game was out of reach. Now, does that mean that the Vikings would have won the game? Probably not, because the Packers were playing really well at the time, but it was still kind of a curious decision on Kevin O'Connell's part as to why they started Jaron Hall in the first place. But yeah, this is a devastating blow for the Vikings. Now, was this the right thing? Yeah, to get the full surgery, take the recovery time and come back strong next year. But, as much as, people may say, like, oh, J.J. McCarthy wasn't going to be good, and you still wanted to see him play. You wanted to have that opportunity to see what he could do, because eventually he was going to take over for Sam Darnold. But that just ended up not happening. And now we kind of have to, wait a whole year for, him to recover and come back. And now, were the Vikings, were they destined to be, one of the best teams in the NFL this year? I don't think. No, they weren't. Now, do they have a good roster? Yeah, they do. But how this team was set up this year, it was really just, let's see how J.J. McCarthy does, and we go from there. Now, obviously, Sam Darnold was going to start the year, and I guess depending on how the season was going to go, then J.J. McCarthy would have taken over, but now this is going to be Sam Darnold's team. And Sam Darnold, for what he is as a quarterback, I mean, he's going to be a backup, for the rest of his career, most likely. I mean, can this be an opportunity where, he plays well, wins games for the Vikings, and maybe a team that needs a quarterback gives him a shot to be a starter again? Because, we did see what he did in Carolina those first few games of the season when he was their starter, and people thought, wow, look at Sam Darnold on the Panthers now. But that all changed pretty quickly. And, spent some time with the 49ers, was Brock Purdy's backup last year, and now he's with the Vikings. Now, he's in a good situation with the Vikings, but, Sam Darnold is what he is. He's not a franchise quarterback. He's going to be, he's going to be the starter this year, and we'll see how he does. But, he is what he is at this point in his career. And, again, it's just an unfortunate thing that had to happen. Because, again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I was leaning one way or another. I didn't really watch a ton of games with Michigan. I just know from watching the national championship game and, from hearing all around that, yeah, he was a guy that J.J. McCarthy that handed the ball off a lot. But that was just how good Michigan's running game was, because what did they run for? Over 250 yards in the national championship game? So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, and then the preseason debut was a mixed bag. Throws an interception, but did throw a couple of touchdowns. Looked decent. That's really all we got from him this year. Now, it was a preseason game. Got to see how he does in an actual game, but we got to wait. And one thing that people were talking about yesterday is just how, the Vikings, they just can't seem to get it right at quarterback. Now, it doesn't mean J.J. McCarthy's not the answer with this injury, but I mean in terms of just there's always something that ends up happening. They haven't been able to find, more so they haven't been able to find stability at the quarterback position. They had Kirk Cousins for a few years, but now he's gone. Before that, you're going through guys like Case Keenum, who was part of the Minneapolis Miracle. You had Sam Bradford, Christian Ponder, Teddy Bridgewater, who got hurt. He had his knee injury that kept him out, and then he ended up being, a journeyman quarterback the rest of his career. Now he retired recently. And it's just it's quarterback carousel, really. And I feel like I'm trying to, am I forgetting anybody else? Well, and then before Christian Ponder, you had, Brett Favre, and I think Tavares Jackson was on the Vikings as well. it's just been it's been a cycle for the Vikings. And now this year, I mean, last year, look at what happened last year when Kirk Cousins got hurt. You had Josh Dobbs, Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins. Now it's the same thing. Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall. Those are your quarterbacks moving forward. Now, could the Vikings go out and trade for a quarterback? Maybe. I mean, I think it all depends on, where they're at, maybe. Because maybe they're hovering around 500. Sam Darnold's not, playing the best. Maybe they just bring in another backup quarterback. I don't know. They're not going to find. I mean, they traded for Josh Dobbs last year, and it looked like, wow, Josh Dobbs and the Vikings, they could make the playoffs, and then that just ended up not happening. So they're going to ride it out with Darnold. They're probably going to ride it out with what they have on the roster. Maybe Jaron Hall in year 2, is a little better than last year, because when he did start, he wasn't very good. So, who knows? But Sam Darnold is going to be the starter moving forward, and yeah, this is just it stinks, and you guys know me and how I feel about injuries, so, and we all feel the same way about injuries. It's just it stinks. And, we're not going to get an opportunity to see him play, what he can do this year. We're going to have to wait. But I think this does hurt a little bit just because, you're missing your entire rookie season. You're looked at as the franchise guy, but you're not going to be playing at all. Now, if he was healthy, maybe he sat the whole year. But it's different because you're not hurt. Now you're hurt, and, now you got to go through rehab and, trying to get yourself back. That's going to hurt him a little bit. So we'll have to wait, but, wish nothing but the best for J.J.McCarthy. Hopefully he comes back strong next year, and we get to see what he could do. So, but that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think about the impact of this injury for the Vikings. How do you see Sam Darnold performing in 2024? So I will definitely see him play week 1 against the Giants when I go. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the Giants win, though. But we're going to take our first break of the show here. When we come back, we will talk about the trade that was made yesterday, the Falcons getting Matt Judon from the Patriots. I'll talk about the impact of that. So with that being said, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about Matt Judon being traded from the Patriots to the Falcons. And kind of a surprising move. I know that there was some stuff going on with Matt Judon looking for a new contract with the Patriots. And it looked like it got resolved, but that ended up not being the case, and he ends up going to the Falcons. And the one thing I'll say is, what was the big need that the Falcons needed to address in the draft? That was edge rusher. And that's why the Michael Penix pick got a lot of criticism, was because, the Falcons needed to get an impact player on the defensive side of the ball. And, they still ended up addressing that position, but they didn't do it with their first pick. They took Michael Penix Jr. But now they ended up addressing it by getting Matthew Judon from the Patriots, who's arguably their best defensive player. And these are kind of his stats, over the course of his career. Played with the Ravens at the start of his career, was drafted in 2016, I believe. And, yeah, these are his total sack numbers, total tackles. He's been in 4 Pro Bowls. Did miss some time last year due to injury, but he will really help out this Falcons defense. And I was looking at the sack totals from last year. So they had 42 sacks. So they were 21st in the NFL in sacks. Now, you bring Matthew Judon in, and that should definitely tick up a little bit. And they were one behind the Eagles, who, again, I know I've talked about, the Eagles' defense and the moves that they made this offseason, but what a difference, from the previous year when they had, 4 double-digit sack players. But, yeah, so the Falcons are hoping with this move that, this is going to elevate their pass rush. And, you pair him up with Grady Jarrett. You also had Jesse Bates, who you brought in a couple years ago or you brought in last year. A.J. Terrell, their corner. So they're hoping that, Matthew Judon can come in and really be a difference maker, which I think he will be. Because last year, he only played in 11 games. He had 4 sacks last year, 10 solo tackles. No, I am completely wrong on that. He played in 4 games last year. He really didn't play. But he had 4 sacks in 4 games, 13 total tackles, 10 solo tackles, 3 assists. I don't know why I thought he played in 10 games. But yeah, he only played in 4 games last year. But yeah, they're hoping for numbers from the previous season when he played in all 17 games, 60 total tackles, 15.5 sacks. So that's what they're getting in this pass rush. Falcons are looking good. They are really building something over there. And really it all comes down to the quarterback play, of course. I think in a lot of ways. Because if Kirk Cousins plays like how he did before the injury last year, I mean, this team's going to be good. And I think you really have to look at this team as the favorites in the NFC South. I've been saying that all along, and I'll continue to say it. I think this move really does help them on that side of the ball, because that defense, was lacking in some areas, but they, really, this move really helps them out. And I just think, this division is, one of the weaker divisions. So even if they didn't get Matthew Judon, I mean, I still think that they are the favorites to win the division. But this is a needle mover. You want to talk about a needle mover? This is definitely a needle mover, getting this guy. And like I said, you want to see him perform to how he did in 2022 as opposed to last year when he was, he only played in 4 games. I don't know why I said 10, but yeah, only played in 4 games last year. And so they traded him. The Patriots traded him in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick, and he was set to make $6.5 million in the final year of his current deal. And, of course, there was that heated exchange that he had with Gerard Mayo, but it seemed like things got resolved, but I guess, they did not, because he ended up getting traded. And, yeah, he was out. He only played 4 games last year due to a bicep tear. But, yeah, did end up with 4 sacks last year. And the Patriots now on the Patriots side, they have nearly $45 million in cap space and have signed multiple players, including Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Ramondre Stevenson. Those guys got deals this offseason, but they didn't extend Judon, which is kind of curious. I mean, I think they were trying to, but I guess they just really could not come to an agreement, and that's why he's gone. But definitely, I'm sure Patriot fans are not very happy that this ended up happening, because we'll get into them a little bit later in the show when we preview the preseason game tonight between the Eagles and the Patriots. But that's one of your better players, and you're moving off of him. And this is kind of a reset year for the Patriots, but you still want to have some talent on this team. And I guess they kind of figured that they're just going to move off of Judon because they just really could not get to an agreement. But it's kind of funny how we get this trade, but we still are waiting on Brandon Ayuk and what's going on there. Because, like I said yesterday, there's a deal in place, but nothing has happened. So, now, with Judon, I know I said this is a needle mover for the Falcons. Do I put them ahead of any of the other teams that I, ranked ahead of them? No. I mean, they're still kind of in the same spot. But this does make them a better team. It does. Because, once again, that side of the ball was lacking. They were in the 20s when it comes to sacks last year in terms of overall rankings. But, you had a guy that had 15 and a half sacks a couple years ago. That's going to help. That's going to help out. It's going to make the other players on the defense better. So, this was a good move for the Falcons. And, yeah, another big move. And now I think them not addressing edge rusher in the draft, I think those can go away. That can all go away for them not addressing that with their first pick, because they ended up getting it in Matthew Judon. Now, he's an older player, but I think it's still a good move. They addressed the position, and I think at least some of the criticisms can go away. I mean, you could still have an issue with them taking Michael Penix Jr. with that pick because you paid Kirk Cousins a boat ton of money to be your guy, but you draft his replacement with your first selection in the top 10. So, right, the top 10? Well, the top 15. So, I think at least some of it could go away. That's really my thoughts on that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this move for the Falcons. How do you feel about it? I think it is a solid move for them. It strengthens the pass rush, strengthens the defense in general. I think this was a good move for them. So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again that we qualified for Super Chats. So, if you want to tip or donate, help out the show, click the $ in the chat menu on the video here. It makes the show more interactive between me and you guys, the viewers. It highlights your comment. I make sure to acknowledge it during the live broadcast. And it just makes the show better. And if you can't do that, you could always click on the link, which is GSMCpodcast.net. But that ends up taking you to another site. It's much easier to just do it here with the Super Chat feature and be able to stay with the broadcast as opposed to going to another site. So if you want to do that, we greatly appreciate it. We appreciate you guys viewing our shows day in and day out. So, yeah, just wanted to remind you guys about that. And when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Hard Knocks. We'll talk about Episode 2. We'll talk about Caleb Williams' debut, because I know I talked about it a little bit yesterday. I kind of just ran through a bunch of the games because they were, we had a full slate over the weekend. But I did watch Episode 2 late last night. I really wanted to focus on, obviously the preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. There were some other things that they covered. But, obviously my main focus was I want to focus on the preseason debut of Caleb Williams, because, that's something that we were all anticipating. And, he looked good. But we'll get into all that when we come back from break. But also, I did want to bring up another thing, too, is that Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens was involved in a car accident. And he is okay, though, after the accident. But, just scary stuff on that front. John Harbaugh said he's feeling good. It was a pretty significant accident. He said he came out of it with nothing at all, not a scrape. So that's good to hear. But I know that was something that I saw, looking for topics for the show today. But yeah, that just scary stuff there. Happy happy that he's all right. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. I hope everybody involved in the crash is all right. So, but I wanted to bring that up as well. But, so we're going to take our second break of the show now. And like I said, when we come back, we will talk more about Caleb Williams' debut. We'll talk about Hard Knocks, the second episode of Hard Knocks with the Bears. So, with that being said now, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Episode 2 of Hard Knocks featuring the Chicago Bears. And, the main thing I wanted to talk about was obviously the preseason game with the Buffalo Bills because, that involved Caleb Williams' preseason debut, which was highly anticipated. And did only play that one drive, but he looked good, in the limited playing time that he got. And again, it's only preseason, so I know I keep saying that, so we got to take everything lightly, but from what I saw, Bears might have something with him. Now, he did go 4 for 7, 95 yards. But he had that no-look pass to DeAndre Swift for 42 yards. He made that nice throw to DJ Moore for a first down, nice throw to Cole Kmet for 26 yards. So there were things to like. But I think what some people are worried about is he tries to do too much. But you know what? Again, there's going to be an adjustment period, with being a rookie quarterback. You're not going to be able to find it immediately. So... But it's just, again, it's hard for me to see the Bears just not be... It's hard for me to see them not do well this year just because of the amount of talent that's on this team. Both on offense and defense. And they really brought it to the Bills in that game. I mean, they won 33-6. Now, again, it's not like this was a regular season game, but still, I mean, they won by a lot. And I think they did have a pick 6 in this game, I want to say. and that was by Micah Baskerville, I think. Baskerville for 53 yards. So, look, it was a good game for the Bears. So, they're 2-0 in the preseason. So, that's got to mean something. No, not really. But you do have to like what you see so far. And I think one of the things that they focused on, was also, again, Austin Reed. They were showing more of his family watching him, trying to make the team. And I know he completed a pass, and his parents were going crazy, but then it got reviewed, and then it got overturned that it was incomplete. So they were upset about that. Then he threw another nice pass, and then there was another flag, and his parents were freaking out. But there was pass interference on that play, defensive pass interference, so the play stood. And he was saying how football is what he wants to do with his life, but at the same time, he also was saying that he's also got to think about, a backup plan in case this doesn't work out. And, it's you want to root for him that he does make the team, because they also have Brett Rippon, who looked good in the Hall of Fame game, and Tyson Bagent, who won some games for the Bears last year. So, maybe the odds are stacked up against him a little bit. I mean, Brett Rippon actually only went 1 for 2 for 10 yards in the game against the Bills. So, didn't really do much. Partly because, the Bears were up by a lot. I mean, they outscored the Bills 20-0 in the fourth quarter. So I don't know when I guess he came in the game towards the end, because I didn't watch, the whole game. I really was only focusing on Caleb Williams' debut. But they showed Rome Odunze. He, sang a song in one of their meetings. And, they talked about how, the Bears got a very good player in him. They showed DJ Moore and his family, more of Jonathan Owens with Simone Biles in the episode as well. But there's only I guess there's only 3 more episodes after this. Same thing as the Giants, and then we move on to the AFC North as a whole throughout the season. So that'll be cool to see. But yeah, this has really been and I've said this is really my first time sitting down and actually watching Hard Knocks. And again, I've said it before, but they really do a great job. They really do. And it just gets you hyped up for the season. They just want to get there and get to these games already, because it's just we're really fiending for it right now. But yeah, they do a great job with that. And I mean, with the Bears, you can kind of see it a little bit just from that one drive, that they could really do some special things this year with all those weapons. And you got to remember, the defense did play better towards the end of the year once they traded for Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat led the Bears in sacks and the Commanders in sacks. And he was traded to the Bears in the middle of the season. And then they gave him a lot of money. And then, of course, you have Jalen Johnson as well. They got a lot of talent on this team. That it really is hard for me to see them not do well. Now, I'm not expecting them to win the division, but I really do think that this team can make the playoffs. And once again, it's all going to come down to Caleb Williams and his development throughout the season. But he's got a lot of talent around him to help him out. So we'll see how it goes. And they play in a very tough division. But that's my thoughts. But let me know what you guys think, though, about Caleb Williams' debut. Let me know what you guys think about the second episode of Hard Knocks with the Bears. What were some of your takeaways from that as well? But, you know, the storylines that they are focusing on, one of them, like I said, is, you know, of Austin Reed. So, kind of pulling for him to make the team. But it's going to be at the expense of somebody else, whether it's Bajent or Brett Rippon. But I have a feeling that, you know, Austin Reed could be, you know, cut, which will kind of be sad. Because, again, you're showing that, you know, they're showing his family, you know, cheering him on. And, you know, they try to, you know, get you emotional. And they're trying to get you to pull for him in this. So we'll see what ends up happening at the end of camp. But, yeah, so I will make sure to recap the third episode when we get to it next week. They release every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So I know this was a little bit later in the week just because of, you know, I didn't do the show Monday and Tuesday. So, you know, trying to play catch up here. So, yeah, that was really my thoughts on the episode. Again, let me know what you guys think about it, about Caleb Williams' debut. Small sample size, but, you know, there's definitely a lot to like. And like I said, I think for the most part, all the rookie quarterbacks didn't do bad. They all had their moments, really except Drake May. Drake May really did not play that much. But everybody else, they got a little bit of, well, Caleb Williams did only play one drive, but, you know, he, you know, got the Bears in scoring position and, you know, did make some good throws. But, yeah, all the rookie quarterbacks really, you know, had a little bit of a runway. So we'll see if Drake May plays more tonight, because we will preview that game a little bit later in the show. Well, towards the end of the show. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the episode. When we come back from our next break, we are going to talk about the AFC East wide receivers. I'm going to rank those receivers. And again, just to remind you guys, it's as a whole. Now, Dan Orlovsky did the same thing recently. He was ranking the NFC North. And you're ranking them collectively as a group. It's not individually. Now, these rankings, I will say, were easier to do as opposed to, well, definitely as opposed to yesterday, because yesterday the wide receiver groups are loaded. But with this division, it was kind of easier to rank them. And actually, the Patriots will be in this segment as well. So, you know, a lot of Patriot stuff today between the Judon trade, the receivers, and, of course, talking about the preseason game tonight. You know, the Patriots are getting some love this show today. So, you know, if you're a Patriots fan and you're watching this, you know, this is for you. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do when we come back from break. And then we only got 3 more divisions after that. And then, I mean, I'll see. Am I going to rank the tight ends? It's something I will discuss with myself behind the scenes on what I'm going to do. But, you know, as of right now, you know, we're just going to focus on the receivers here. But, yeah, that's what we're going to do when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the AFC East wide receivers. We'll get into that discussion. We will rank the wide receiver groups within that division. So let's get right into that. So, of course, we got the Patriots, who I've talked about, who I'm going to talk about more in the final segment. We got the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills. And no, that is not how I'm ranking them. But let's get into it now. So we're going to start off with the Patriots. And we'll get into talking about their offense, a little bit. In a little bit. We'll talk about them, in the second part, or the final part of the show. But out of the teams within this division, I do believe this is the weakest of the group. Right now, you kind of look at Kendrick Bourne as the number one wide receiver, and he's recovering from an ACL injury from last year. They did recently cut Juju Smith-Schuster, so it'll be interesting to see where he could end up potentially, because I think he's still only 25. They did bring in KJ Osborne. Kashawn Boutte made some plays last week. Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, who they drafted. The Patriots' wide receiver core is definitely lacking. And, when you got a young quarterback, now Jacoby Brissett is going to start, but you got a young quarterback in Drake May that, is eventually going to take over and be the starter. But you want to surround him with a lot of talent, and I just don't think, the Patriots have that right now. The offense is definitely lacking. The Patriots in general aren't, I just don't think are going to be a very good team this year. Now, could Gerard Mayo, a new voice, step in and, maybe the Patriots overachieve a little bit? Anything is possible. But right now, I just don't see it. And with this wide receiving core that they got is definitely the weakest. Because you really, Kendrick Bourne as your number one wide receiver, and especially with him coming back from injury, and how are these other guys going to step up, like Douglas and Jalen Polk, who they drafted, recently. They do have some young guys on this team, but again, I just, right now, I don't really see anybody as a difference maker. So, we'll see, but yeah, this receiving core really is lacking, and that's why I'd put them right now at 4. At number 3, I got the Buffalo Bills. Now, they got an interesting receiving core. No more Stephon Diggs, but you still got Khalil Shakir, who I think is going to be a good player. They drafted Keon Coleman, who could be that number one receiver that replaces Stephon Diggs. But they brought in all these other veteran guys. And one of them actually, I think, is hurt. Chase Claypool got placed, I think, on... Did he get placed on injured reserve? But they did bring him in. They brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Matt Collins as well. But yeah, Chase Claypool has been placed on IR. So already he's hurt. So, and that's one of the guys that they brought in. It's a toe injury. Now, he originally was described as day-to-day, but yeah, so he's on injured reserve, and he's missed a lot of camp. So, he might end up being someone that just really does not have an impact for this team this year. But the main guys, you got Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and I think Curtis Samuel, he did have a nice play in the preseason game against the Bears. I think right now that's your top 3. Top 3 wide receivers. And I think Curtis Samuel could be decent in this offense. We'll see how Keon Coleman is at the NFL level. I really do think Khalil Shakir could be the number one receiver in this offense. Made some good plays down the stretch for them last year, and then had that touchdown reception in the playoffs against the Bills or against the Steelers, where he just broke a bunch of tackles and was able to score. He's a good player for them. So I don't know. I maybe I'm too optimistic when it comes to him, but I think right now that's your top three, and then you got MVS and Matt Collins and those other guys, as your depth pieces. So, but yeah, right now I there's no true number one wide receiver on this team at the moment. So that's why I'm kind of putting them at 3. So then at number 2, I got the New York Jets. Now, they have their number one wide receiver, and that's Garrett Wilson. And, despite all the quarterback injuries last year and just it was a quarterback carousel, it was a mess last year. Garrett Wilson still did put up over 1,000 yards. And, now with Aaron Rodgers this year, hopefully healthy. Last year Garrett Wilson had 1,042 receiving yards, 95 receptions, 3 touchdowns. I expect those numbers to be up if we have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And then on top of that, they also brought in Mike Williams. They drafted Malachi Corley. So those are your top 3 wide receivers right now. You also have Xavier Gibson. Allen Lazard is hoping for a bounce-back season. And, look, he was really bad last year, but I do think you got Aaron Rodgers. Lazard should be better this year. But who knows? Right now, though, that Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson are going to be 1 and 2. Malachi Corley could be that number 3. But like I said, you got Xavier Gibson, you got Lazard. So, yeah. But they do have their number one wide receiver, and that's Garrett Wilson. With the Bills, if they still had Stephon Diggs, I probably would have put the Bills ahead. But right now, because there's just some unknowns there. There's unknowns with the Jets, too. Because Mike Williams is working his way back from injury. And on top of that, your quarterback's coming back from injury. So, if your quarterback position isn't in the best situation, the receivers definitely will be impacted by that. So, yeah, I like the Jets at 2. With Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. If Mike Williams is healthy, which has been a problem for him, he should be good. Garrett Wilson with the healthy Aaron Rodgers could be in line for his best season so far as a pro going into year 3. So I got them at 2. And then at 1, this was pretty easy. This was a no-brainer, and that's the Dolphins. 2,000-yard receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. With the NFL's passing yards leader last year in Tua Tagovailoa. A big part of that is because of having these 2 guys. These 2 guys have been a great duo together since Tyreek Hill got there. Tyreek Hill is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You could make the argument that he is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Jalen Waddle is one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the NFL as well. He's been a good player since they drafted him. But yeah, this was kind of a no-brainer. These are 2. Jalen Waddle could be a number 1. And he was a number 1 before, Tyreek Hill got there. But, yeah, this was, like I said, this was pretty easy. Tyreek Hill, if he doesn't get hurt last year, probably finishes close to 2,000 yards receiving. And we'll see if he ends up getting to that mark, if he doesn't get hurt. Yeah, it was pretty easy to, to rank the Dolphins at 1. But to kind of go through it again, at 4 I had the Patriots, 3 the Bills, 2 the Jets, and then 1 I had the Dolphins. So after this, we will cover the AFC North tomorrow, which will be interesting. The best division in football. We'll be back around to them again. With doing these rankings, we're back there. Like I said, 3 more divisions after this. We got the AFC North, AFC South, and then the AFC West, and then we're done with the receiver rankings. So let me know what you guys think about the rankings for the AFC East. How would you rank the receiver groups within that division? So yeah, when we come back from our final break of the show, we will talk about the Patriots again, because I know we've been talking about them in pretty much every segment. We will preview the game tonight between them and the Eagles. Obviously, it's preseason, but I believe that is the only game that is on tonight. So we will talk about that, and just some more stuff to talk about with the Patriots from some of the stuff that I was reading on their offense specifically. But yeah, that is the only game tonight. Then a bunch of teams play Saturday, and then we have 2 games on Sunday, which are both being played at the same time on Sunday. So rest of the teams play on Saturday, and then you got 2 games on Sunday. But yeah, we have 1 game today. So Thursday night football. That's when you know we're back, is when we got Thursday night football. And we are less than a month away from the first game of the regular season, which I cannot wait for. I'm just get us to that point already, please. I just want to get there so badly. But we'll talk about these 2 teams when we come back, what to expect from tonight. Again, with the Eagles, you're probably not going to see any of their starters. But the Patriots, you'll probably see, Drake May, I think. So that's what we will get into when we come back from our final break of the show already. The show always goes fast. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Eagles and the Patriots preseason game tonight. It'll be at Gillette Stadium. Patriots are 3-point favorites. The over-under is 36. We aren't really going to see the Eagles starters play tonight. Probably going to see more Kenny Pickett, who played last week, had 89 yards and a touchdown. I'm assuming we're going to see pretty much all the Patriot quarterbacks play once again. Maybe see a little bit more of Drake May, because I know we didn't really get to see that much of him. Because, like I said, the other rookie quarterbacks, they did play a decent amount. Bo Nix, J.J.McCarthy, Michael Penix. Caleb Williams made some plays in his only drive, but didn't really see a lot out of Drake May. But it's only the first preseason game, so see a little bit more of him tonight, I'm assuming. But one of the things that I saw when, looking at stuff for this game is, the Patriots and the Eagles had their joint practices. Now, the Patriots' offensive line was supposedly overwhelmed by the Eagles' front seven, allowing more than 15 sacks than completed passes. Well, no. They allowed more sacks than completed passes, so 15 to 14. 15 sacks to 14 completed passes. That really does highlight, a problem that they have. The offensive line, well, the offense in general also struggled with penalties, averaging 1 penalty for every 10 offensive reps. There was also issues with unforced errors, including failed center exchanges, which added to the team's frustration. Tommy Curran described the practice as a reality check for the Patriots, suggesting that the team needs to improve its execution rather than overall its strategy. Although rookies like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, they performed well, so that's good to hear. They made several impressive catches through their impact was limited by the poor pass protection. And yeah, that is a problem because, like I said, the Patriots are lacking on the offensive side of the ball, but now when you're saying the offensive line is a problem, well, how are they going to be able to move the ball at all? Not even just throwing it, but also running it. You got to give Ramondre Stevenson some lanes to run through. And on a positive note, I did see that A.J. Brown was praising Christian Gonzalez, their cornerback, for the Patriots. You know, he didn't really – his rookie season got derailed by injury. So, you know, they're hoping that this year is different. But that's at least, you know, a plus is hearing that. But, yeah, like I said, you know, the Patriots, they could be in for another tough season. But that could also just mean that, hey, you're playing against a team that's going to be really good this year, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, I think the defense is going to be improved from last year. Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator. I do think the defense for the Eagles is going to be better. So that also could be another reason. Because the Eagles, I look at them as one of the top teams in the NFC. So, and with the Patriots, I look at them as, you know, a bottom 5 team right now. So that could also be the other reason, too, is you're going up against a really good team in the Eagles in practice that has a ton of talent from top to bottom. That could also be, you know, why they're struggling so much. But even with them playing against the Eagles, I think most of us can agree that the Patriots, yeah, they're probably in for another tough season. And, you know, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But still, I mean, you want to see with this year, you want to see improvements. You know, they're going to start out with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback, and then at some point Drake May is going to take over. But yeah, you want to just see improvement throughout the year, and you want to see what you have right now in this current roster. Now, I think the Matthew Judon move. Now, again, the Patriots aren't, you know, competing for anything, but you know that was one of your best defensive players, and you know they let him go. So, you know, that's going to hurt the defense a little bit. But they do have young players. Let's see, you know, the young receivers, you know, like I said, they're making plays. So, you know, we'll see if they, you know, help out the offense a little bit. Christian Gonzalez, like I said, A.J. Brown praised him. A.J. Brown's one of the best receivers in the NFL. So, you know, if you're getting a compliment from him, that you know you're doing something right. But, yeah, we'll see how it goes tonight, you know, and keep an eye on Joe Milton, too. You know, he made plays against the Panthers last week. Let's see what he does as an on-court performance. Because I know there's, you know, some rumblings out there that maybe he could be the starter for the Patriots instead. And don't worry, and don't forget about Bailey Zappi. You know, don't worry, be Zappi. Don't forget about him. Yeah, curious to see what ends up happening. You know, I mean, I'm guessing Zappi could be the odd man out. Or, you know, when it comes to the depth chart. But we'll see. We'll see. And then for the Eagles, like I said, probably not going to, you know, really see any of the, you're not going to see any of the starters really play. I mean, Jalen Hurts probably, I mean, maybe he does play a drive in next week's preseason game, maybe, but it seems like I think he's going to be held out. Probably not going to really see any of the starters. When we see him, it's going to be when they play in Brazil against the Packers, which, yeah, I mean, those first 2 days, I mean, you got the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then the night after you got the Eagles and the Packers. So, that could be, championship game previews right there. First two days of the season. First 2 games of the season. I don't think so, but you never know. You never know. But yeah, that's really all I have for this game. Like I said, this is the only game tonight. Patriots are favored in this game. For the bettors out there. But yeah, not really much to add here. Like I said, I wish the starters were playing for the Eagles so we could see them for a little bit, but we're not really gonna. It doesn't seem like we're really gonna get that. And then tomorrow we'll preview all the games for the weekend. Like I said, got a bunch of games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. So we'll see. What ends up happening here. Both teams did win their first preseason games last week, so we'll see how this game goes. Bad weather in the forecast for this game. At least on CBS it shows that, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we're getting closer to that point with the regular season. We're about 3 weeks away from the start of the year, and I just, like I've been saying, I just want to get to it. I just want to get to that point, and then we're off and running from there. But actually, college football does start next week, so that at least gets us going a little bit. But, yeah, and I've been playing NCAA, and I am horrendous at that game right now. Not very good. It's been a struggle, and hopefully, I could get my act together and get better at the game. But right now, it's just it's been pretty brutal. The last couple times I've been playing. But yeah, college football does start next week, week 0, and yeah, and then we just got football all the way through February. So it's just it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exciting. Can't wait for that. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about the preseason game for tonight. Let me know what you think about any of the topics that we discussed today, going all the way back to the top of the show, talking about J.J. McCarthy, and just how devastating that injury was, or is, and, not going to be able to see him play this year. The Matthew Judon trade, Hard Knocks episode, the AFC receiver rankings, and this. Just let me know what you guys think about all of or any of the topics that we discussed. I'd love to get your comments. I do my best to try to respond to them, whether they're nice or not. I still try to acknowledge them in some capacity. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. I don't know what happened there. I got choked up talking about it. It makes me emotional talking about the other shows because everybody does a great job. But yeah, make sure to check out them when you get a chance. Both YouTube channels or wherever you get your podcast as well. If you don't want to look at our faces, you could always listen in as well. Whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast, we are on there as well. And I try to get them up as quickly as possible. Because right when I'm done with the show, I go right into editing and get them up on the audio side of things, and then of course reposting the segments so you don't have to go through the whole stream if you miss something. The segments will be right there for you to check out. So, but yeah, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. We will be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. We're already at Friday, which is unbelievable. But yeah, so make sure to tune in. And yeah, so as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.